Jared Armstrong, welcome to Ami's house. Good to have you.
Thanks, Ami. Thanks so
Long
much
time
for
coming.
having me.
We've been my pleasure. Coordinating this for a while. Fascinating story. Let's get to it. Get a little background for the viewers.
Sure.
Of how we connected, and then we'll get into some of the juicy stuff. So, Jared Armstrong,
Yeah.
tell us about yourself.
I'm just a regular guy from Philly. I was born and raised as a black Jew. My family's had a synagogue for over almost 80 years now.
Bluish,
And,
as Eric Andre calls it, right? Black and Jewish.
And now, I play professional basketball in Israel. I've been there for 3 years and looking forward to just continue to build my name, my brand, who I'm as a person, and, try to repair the world.
Try to repair the world. All right, tall order, but I like that.
I have no follow-up questions to that.
Black, Jewish, in Philly. Yeah, Michael, go.
I hate the question, how Jewish were you, but how affiliated were you guys? Like, were you conservative? Were you going to Jewish day schools and all that?
So I didn't grow up going to Jewish day school. I went to a private school in the private sector, but my family growing up was very strict. So on Saturdays, I wasn't able to play basketball.
Oh, wow. That's pretty...
That's even stricter than us.
I was in a synagogue all day.
Right.
And, it wasn't until I got 12 that my parents got divorced and we became more secular. And obviously, I started getting good at basketball. So she's like, in order for you to get an opportunity at getting a free education, like I have to let you play on Saturdays because that's when all the travel basketball events were. So...
Yeah, I would say the different communities you come from, even in the Orthodox world, like sports on the Sabbath, sports on Shabbos is where I grew up. You could play, even in mesh shorts. You could play. If you go over to Teaneck, where Michael's from, you got to wear your school clothes. You got to just schwitz through it. But you can play. Sure. You can shoot around. If it gets a little too organized, it's not nice.
For sure.
But they had to wear like khakis and like sneakers. They had to stay in polos. Remember that?
And Sitzes too.
You had
Not
to stay.
Me, but I
if ever I went over to the if we're getting real inside Jersey baseball here, so if you came to this town for Shabbos, it's like modern Orthodox lowercase O capital M. If you go over to where Michael's from, you could do the same things. You just have to wear much less comfortable clothes whilst doing it.
For sure.
So that's really interesting. So how did in terms of Judaism in your family? What was the origin story of Judaism?
It started from my great aunt, like. What was that? At least almost 80 years ago, because she started the synagogue. Wow. And then from there, they're almost 9-10 generations in. I mean, I'm not a part of the synagogue anymore.
Right.
My rabbi is actually the rabbi to President Biden, so it's another conversation.
Ooh, okay,
day.
shifting, especially given recent events.
As I got older, I was never really religious. I was always spiritual. I always told my grandma growing up, like, the Torah is just a book of stories. Like, I don't believe people really live 400 years, but that was just me, being young. And then after I went to college.
What was your reaction to that?
My grandmother, she was just always telling me I'm crazy. So after college, then, experienced Israel going on Birthright. I feel like I became more, I wouldn't say religious, but just more spiritual. And the rest is history after that.
Right.
How do you feel about the phrase Jews of color? Is that an annoying phrase to hear?
I mean, I think it's not annoying, but Jews are Jews. Like, I think there's just this American perception where it's white and black. And I think that has been entitled into the Jewish community as well, where we always say, like, Jews come from all different places. We're indigenous. We're all attached to the land. But then we have this stigma of I'm a Jew of color. Like, I just call myself a Jew.
Right. And did you, as far as black identity versus Jewish identity, did you two connect more with one or the other? I mean, it's an interesting thing with race, especially in the United States, as we attach certain identities based on immutable characteristics or culture. And I recently had this conversation with, notably, Candace Owens, where she said, well, Jews, as you know, Jews are a race. And we talked about, like, Jewish supremacy versus all the other things. It got into the weeds of me trying to explain what we're saying here, which is Jews are multiracial, multi-ethnic, and even so, like, look, in the communities we come from on the East Coast, it's majority, you could say, Caucasian.
For sure.
And then, like, Sephardi Jews and stuff. But I would just say, like, the racial component of our existence as a community is pretty irrelevant. It's much more about being Jewish than anything else. For sure. So I'm curious in your sense.
For me, part of my first half of my life, I grew up in the suburbs of Maryland, of Anne Arundel County. So, I was always a minority in my school district. Well, at least my private school for sure. And then once I got to Philly, it was kind of a culture shock because I never really been around a lot of African American kids. So I never caught the subway. I never caught the bus. During my era, like there was a big thing where kids would get jumped on the subway. Like I wasn't into the sneaker culture. Like the whole culture was all kind of new to me, and I always felt a little bit different because, I kept Shabbat. So Christmas, come holiday time in school, is like, it's a regular day for me. I didn't have a Christmas tree growing up. I didn't, we celebrated Hanukkah. We really called it, a time to get gifts.
Right.
That was our Christmas. So, for me, it wasn't, I just always felt a little bit different, a little bit odd because of my religion, but I didn't let it affect me. And I don't think a lot of my teammates ever looked at me differently.
Did you feel that way around the Jewish kids also?
Not really, because most of my, at least growing up, most of my family are Jewish. So when I went to synagogue, I'm around mostly all of my family members.
Well, that's why I asked originally, because I know I spent some time in Crown Heights, living in Brooklyn, and I know I don't know what else to say besides Jews of color, just to illustrate the point I'm saying, because I agree with you. I think it's kind of a useless term, but that community always kind of felt isolated and not part of the Jewish community there. So I think they kind of had their own kind of community and their own friends and meals and stuff like that. Was it
You're saying
that
Jews who were black in Crown Heights?
Yeah, Jews who were black in Crown Heights kind of felt unwelcome from what I heard. Even in the most welcoming shuls and stuff like that, they felt kind of ostracized. So I'm just wondering, was the shul in Philly a shul?
Well, it was mostly my family. So, obviously we had visitors. I mean, Michael Oren's been there. Danny Dion's been there.
And your family is the pillar of the community, you're saying?
I don't know about now. I haven't been there in over 15 years.
Growing up, you said they founded one of the founders of the community?
Well, my great aunt started the synagogue.
Right.
So,
right.
And then your family populated it?
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Yep. So, I have family members still that go there today, but I'm not associated with it. I'm in a conservative synagogue. They're considered non-denominational. So for me,
what's the name of the synagogue?
It's called Congregation Temple Bethel. They've been to Israel. Like I said, I grew up there. I can't erase my history.
No, of course.
But we had a kind of a falling out, in my personal opinion, and I just kind of walked away.
I got it.
That's it.
I got you. Okay, well, we have someone from Temple Bethel here coming in to talk to you, Jared, and trying to bring you back in. And we have to make peace on Ami's house. But also, I'm fascinated by this idea that you faced sort of a culture shock. Both, was it a black and Christian, non-Jewish culture shock when you left out of the Maryland community, you were saying?
No, I think it was just a culture shock to city living. I was a suburban kid,
right?
Carpool every day. I think it really taught me how to be independent. Culture shock when it comes to, being around people that look like me. I think I gelled well, but you always feel a little bit different. And
because you're saying that was later in life when you were around people who
I was 12
like
years old, 12, 13 years old.
This is unusual for me.
Yeah, because I always was used to being the minority. And then as I got older, in middle school, I went to Jesus School. It was a very prestigious school in Philadelphia.
Jesuits take the education.
Was it a basketball?
Yeah, basketball program's really good. And, there was really no white kids in our school.
Right.
And then when I went to high school, my first 3 years, I went to a Mennonite school. So I was, then one of the only black kids in the whole entire school. So I always tell people I got a good education of meeting people from all different walks of life.
Right.
I've been with Quakers and Mennonites. I've been with Christians. I've been with Catholics. And I've been with Jews.
I'm just curious, when did you feel sort of more othered or fish out of water? Was it in the early days growing up in the Jewish community, or was it going into when you were first around other black kids? Because that's so fascinating.
I wouldn't say I felt othered. I just say it was kind of an adjustment period.
Right.
Growing up when I was young, when I went to school, nobody really asked you when your religion when you're second, third, fourth, fifth grade.
Right.
So it was just me playing with other kids. And same in middle school. Nobody, I think, ever asked me oh, you're Jewish, how, or anything like that. We were just a bunch of kids trying to, make our way, get through school, have fun, all that type of stuff. I think it wasn't until more so high school when, I don't really think anybody asked me, but I always felt a little bit different because Quakers are, they stick together. They're one big kind of family, there was a bunch of Bergies that went to my school. There was a bunch of
oatmeal to everything. Yeah.
But I never felt different anyway. I just felt a little bit out of the ordinary because of just the holidays and you know,
like
compared to
we
them.
all would in a secular, a non-Jewish environment.
For sure.
And then you went to college after that? Or
Yeah, so I ended up graduating from Slippery Rock University.
Okay. Where's that?
It's in Slippery Rock, PA, so it's about 40 minutes from Pittsburgh. One of maybe 4 Jews in the school. I think I met one of the Jews. She played volleyball, and she was just, we were talking, and she had a star day. I was like, "You're Jewish?" And she's like, "Yeah." And that was it. That was the end of the conversation.
She was huge and intimidating.
But other than that, it didn't really bother me in college either.
Yeah, and you played ball there?
Yeah. I had a pretty good career. I would say I'm a humble guy, so I think I had a good career there. And you know, after that, I graduated during COVID. So my first year, I started a training company, which I still have. Which, you know, I come from a hardworking family. My mom was like, "Listen, you got to figure it out. I don't care if it's COVID or not." So I learned how to make money, create my own business, and I kind of just took off before I went to Israel.
So before we get to Israel, just to keep it here for a second, do you have any what's your take on sort of the Jewish community in America broadly as it relates to the black community broadly, being someone who can kind of be of both worlds and see it that way? And interestingly, like your identity growing up was that you were Jewish, and then you're coming into a world that wouldn't necessarily see you that way because it's more rare than not. I mean, in the communities we grew up in, occasionally you'd see someone who was black or of a different sort of race on the optics of it, black or Asian or anything like that, which is just as Jewish as anyone else, but it was just more rare in numbers. So there's this lack of exposure to communities outside our own, and that encompasses sometimes not being around African Americans and other people because they're just not in the Jewish community. Yeah. So I'm curious what your take is.
I mean,
on that.
I think
distance or
I think
perception.
I would say mainly in the black community, many blacks think that Jews are all white, and I think you know, in the Jewish community, it's kind of the opposite. Like perception, like I was telling you before, you know, perception is reality. So when they do see a sprinkle here, a sprinkle there, you know, they automatically think, oh, you know, he probably converted to Judaism, or their wife or their husband is Jewish, you know, so they just happen to be a part of community. So I think there's this misconception on both sides, you know, in the black community.
How'd you get in? Like, what did you do?
On the black community, you know, they see perception when they, you know, maybe drive by or been to a synagogue, they see all white Jews, you know, and on the Jewish side, you know, they may not be around African American Jews or Sephardic Jews or Moroccan Jews, so they only see, you know, like I said, perception. So I think on both sides, there's really a misconception that needs to be changed. You know, I think as, you know, we go into 2024, 2025, you know, I think we have to really show the diversity of, you know, the Jewish community because it's very diverse.
You are definitely speaking to that whole like, reaction. That's the really and that's what, and I think it just comes from it being a more monolithic, like just in terms of color of what you see.
For sure.
We basically Sephardi, Persian, Syrian. That's about as much as it gets, but we don't see it as much, and to assume that there's this foreign element to it is what you're trying to dispel.
For sure.
It sounds like you don't go to shul very often, but
I mean, personally, I don't. But you know,
no, but he's not wrong.
No. But I sometimes think when I see a black guy walking the shul, I'm like, what if I walk in the shul, I was the only white guy? Like, I would feel so uncomfortable.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure there's
totally get that.
And I'm pretty sure there's, you know, black people, or like you said in your situation.
That's because he happens to be excepeptionly pale. Like the olive skin here. I'm fine.
I mean, but I've seen so many. I've heard so many stories, you know, of people that, you know, have experienced a bit of racism going into a synagogue, you know, just being the only black person or only whatever color person that walks in there, and, you know, people don't treat them right. I just actually heard a story from a cousin of mine who lives in D.C., and her mom wanted to go to shul. My aunt, this was years ago, and she said like nobody welcomed her when she went to the shul in D.C. So.
Yeah, I think it could go the opposite way also, where people are like overly welcome, and you're like, I'm just a person.
Ooh, wow.
And like, what's your story?
Yeah.
Like, I'm just Jewish.
For sure.
That's my story.
I think
I had this question at a Shabbat table, like that question. I think for a lot of African American Jews is like a bit of ignorance, like for someone, and I put in this perception for some people, like if you're Jewish and I'm white and I go into the synagogue, you're not going to ask me what's my story.
Right.
But if I'm black and I walk in, you're going to ask me, you know, what's your story? Like, you converted or, and for me, like, I understand people are curious, but to someone that might be a turnoff. Like,
right.
That's the first thing
sure.
you ask is, what's your story? Like, why does it matter? Like, we're all here for the same reason.
Right.
So,
I guess the gracious interpretation of that is that there's just a perception based on what you see more of the time than not.
For sure.
And if I saw someone from India, from China, that was coming into the shul, I'd be intrigued because we're such a small community in general. It's 15 million Jews total. So anybody coming in, we're like, oh,
and also,
nice. There's more than we think. I think it comes from a good place, actually. More than suspicion, just curiosity.
Yeah. It could be.
And you want people to learn, so the next person that walks in, they don't ask that question.
True.
Right.
But you have to ask it once, I guess.
True.
But I've been to events where they do a gallery. Like this photographer, I remember when I was in college, I was at Berklee College of Music, and at Boston University, photographer did a thing called Jews of the World. Black and white photos and colored photos of the different experiences of the communities. And he had pictures from India, because we've been so scattered amongst the nations, because there's this perception, like you said, in the black community, Jews are all white, and maybe it's because they're the public, maybe because also we've done a good job in the sort of Eastern European community, Jewish narrative of publicizing what had happened in terms of post-Holocaust and that sort of arc story of overcoming that, and that has become sort of a dominant thing in sort of American culture, of the Schindler's List, Spielberg story and then you hear from Chen Mazig and Rudy that talk about the Mizrahi and the Sephardic story, and then Harry was here talking about the 10 lost tribes and the Igbo and the communities, and Rudy did this amazing thing where he went around to do that film in Africa. He went to Nigeria, got arrested for it, and you get to see that, and I think you're right. There's a lack of exposure
for sure.
So people go like this and thinking things are foreign, and really no, it's all part of the same umbrella.
For sure.
And when he did this photo gallery that I went to, it was just very cool to see Jews from India and Jews from Shanghai.
Yeah.
There were Jews that ended up in Shanghai, and there's just tribes that go way, way back. And it's more like inclusivity in a way that we don't think about it usually, where it's not just denominational, let's just of different observance, but actually culturally, this huge broad umbrella of Jews, which is also which is just cool.
Yeah, and it's in your conversation with Candace, when she called Judaism a race, I wanted you to
Jews
respond
are a
with
race.
because I think you said this before. We're a people.
Yeah, a people, a family.
Yeah, and the peoplehood of us is you can look however you want, however you look.
I was trying to say, look, you're in Owens, I'm a Kozak. Other people can become Kozaks. We all blend. Everybody comes together under this familial name of Jewish, which has a shared common history, common ancestry, indigenous connection to land, things like that. Yeah. And speaking of which, land, taking us to Israel. I'm curious about when you got to Israel and the organization that you started there, and it kind of makes sense in terms of the continuity of the worlds that you come from to be working with. Like you're saying, I've always known all different kinds of people, and our biases are a full disclosure. We come from more of a monolithic community where, we're taught to be tolerant and all of that, but we just aren't exposed as much to. We come from the private school yeshiva system, where it's just more insular by nature. Nothing good or bad. It's just what it is. So when you get to Israel, what are your first steps in terms of where you're looking? You're playing professional basketball. Just take me through that step.
I went on birthright, and then I fought for Israeli citizenship, which is another story. But once I got through that, basically, it felt like home.
You were alone there?
Wait,
in Israel?
Yeah, you back. You went on birthright, and then you decided I'm going to stay.
Yeah, I mean, I already had a contract with my team.
Okay.
But I went on birthright before. My rabbi was just you signed a contract with a team. How you're going to like the country? You can go there and hate it. Yeah. So he just suggests, he's like, listen, it's a free trip.
Gotta hook up with a few people first. And
He says a free trip. Go experience the country, go see it. And I did, and I stayed after that right in the training camp, and then citizenship problems came, but I was still in Israel during the whole time, but it just it felt like home. I made friends.
And how do Israelis play basketball different than Americans? It's all a one-on-one, even if it's a team, right? Every man for himself.
No, I mean I think European basketball is much more team-oriented than the NBA for sure. I think Israel's one of the best countries to play in when you talk about a whole totality, from talent, from teams, from clubs to the culture, to the weather, to the women, to everything.
Are the fans good there?
Yeah. They'll sell out arenas.
The whole
from the
thing.
drums to the whistles to everything.
Yeah. You don't feel like Well, I guess soccer, like football, is like
yeah. Football's big, but
is it a popular choice for if you're not doing the NBA here? Is Israel like a? Is
Israel's like considered one of the top countries to play in.
Yeah.
You have Spain, Germany, Italy, France, Israel, Australia. Like it's a top 10 country to play.
And in terms of the percentage of the team that's Jewish or not Jewish, because I remember I went to Maccabi. It was Renana or something like that played here at the Brooklyn thing. It was like right after October 7th. Everybody came. It was this like beautiful game.
To get destroyed by the Nets.
I think it was exhibition against the Nets.
It was exhibition.
They lost, I think. But as a people, we won. But it's a mix, right? It's like it's
So normally most teams have between 4 to 6 foreigners, and then the rest of the team are local players, or Jewish Americans.
Is that by design or is that just?
Yeah, that's typically by design. Yeah, the European design.
Right, but people get to see Israel for the first time, and you're watching them, and you're like, and you've been to Israel growing up?
No.
So
that was
the first.
Yeah, that was my first time.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's powerful.
Yeah.
And you get to see people saying like, I just did not expect this. That Israel was this. Given the portrayal of Israel, especially now, front and center, past year.
I mean, I say it all the time when I was just speaking at a Stand With Us event. Like most players, if you ask them like about Israel, like as far as just playing and having their career there, like most of them don't want to leave. At least for the ones that I interact with, like they love the country, they love the food, they love the experience. A lot of players try to build their career there. Obviously you may get offered more money somewhere else, but I think if Israel was a much bigger country and much more I say financially able to pay players, people wouldn't leave for sure. Not
right. How did you feel about the intersection of Israel or Jews and basketball with regard to Kyrie Irving during that whole thing? Was it like talked about on the team like he doesn't know what he's like? What was the?
I would say with the whole Kyrie Irving situation, we didn't really talk about it as a team. To be honest, I think kind of players just probably absorbed it from ourselves. Actually, I'm wrong. I do remember a teammate. We got into a dispute, and he was just saying like it wasn't right that he shared the clip, and we had other teammates that was saying like, well, there is free speech. Like if I want to tweet something, like I should be able to tweet
legally,
it.
he should be allowed to do it. I always say like legal consequences, social consequences are very different. Yeah.
So I mean, I never met Kyrie, so I can't speak about the situation. I've heard nothing but good things as him as a person. Like he's very charitable. He's very willing to give back. He's all about community. So I would love to meet him, love to talk to him. But
all right, we're gonna clip that right from here.
As far as anything else, I have nothing to really say.
I had a really hard time watching him play in these playoffs this year.
Really?
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I just couldn't watch. I couldn't stand watching him be successful because his team did really well this year.
But at the end of the day, an example of Kyrie is somebody who like sees something and like is curious about it. So how do we react to curiosity with ignorance? Do you scream and yell at it and call somebody names, or do you say, here's where it's wrong?
Was he curious, or did he already have a
He
strong
watched the
opinion
documentary, shared it, and that's where it all started. I'm not defending the documentary, the substance of it, and his lack of apologies for it, but it's hard to apologize.
And I saw Rudy had made someone made a Jerusalem Post saying like everything in the documentary wasn't false.
Wasn't false.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I just mean like somebody doesn't know something.
Yeah,
I love that conversation.
Yeah, I didn't. I only read the article. I didn't watch the movie.
Like a lot of
All I'm saying is, are we fragile enough intellectually, as a community, emotionally, to see something that's kind of wrong, incorrect? I sort of said this with regard to the Candace stuff too. It's like if you're saying stuff that we object to, you could scream and yell at it and call somebody names and derogatory and just call them, insults. Hateful things, or you could say you're getting it wrong. I mean, are you going to bring somebody closer to the truth, or push them away from it by doing that?
For sure.
Right. People showed up to his games. There was this, I think, Chabad fella who had a whole like TikTok account where he would buy courtside seats to hold up a sign that says like "Kyrie, we see you" or something.
Yeah.
Remember when Whoopi Goldberg gets kicked off the View and she's asked about like Holocaust stuff, and she goes, "I'll never bring it up again."
Yeah.
That's not what you want. You don't want people scared to bring up ideas that they might not know about, and it's like sloppy. But she said like the Holocaust was not about race. Remember that whole scandal? She was kicked off the View.
No, I mean, listen, I think his message has changed. I know he just came out with like a ball for unity through basketball. So I'm a person.
It's like a football, basketball, baseball combo. Hard to throw, hard to shoot, but
I mean, I would love, like I said, I would love to have a conversation with him.
Yeah.
I think he comes from a good place. I'm not going to say he's anti-Semitic or not, but I think he's genuinely, I heard, a good guy, and I think what he's trying to do now with his messages is nothing
and we can
but
walk and
important.
chew gum at the same time. It's possible for someone who's not anti-Semitic to share a video that is.
For sure.
And those can both be true.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, I cut you off there, Michael.
No, I was gonna ask, like, how big is your do you, like, and obviously you're Jewish, like, is your Jewish identity a big part of yourself? Like, if I met Kyrie, the first thing I'd feel like I'm representing the Jewish community. It's like, do you feel that way when you're out there?
For sure. I mean, I say if you're saying if I would have a conversation with him, I would just try to know him as a person.
Right.
If he asked me my religion, I would say, I'm Jewish.
What would be your agenda for us? No, I'm just kidding.
I mean, I think it's just important to, be able to bridge build. I would see where he came from, really get an understanding of, why he shared what he shared and, make a conclusion from there. But I would really go in there with an open mind. And like I said, none of us truly know him personally, so we can only make, thoughts and decisions off what we see, and nobody else. If we knew him, we may know where he was coming from. Whether I'm not saying he's right or wrong.
We treat people like these forbidden objects, untouchable, unapproachable, lest you go there and be tainted by the wrong idea. And I think that has become even Lex Fridman talking to Kanye, right? Like, since when did it become a thing that you're approving of everything somebody says by engaging with them?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They're this forbidden object that by touching it, you somehow taint the conversation or the truth. Actually, you draw people out, get them to sort of share where they're at. Like you said, you would go and listen to him and see what he's about and see what's going on.
Yeah, I imagine you're part of, like, a lot of wild conversations because people, like, people probably assume whatever they want about you and just talk to you as if you're the same as them or as if you have the same opinion as them. But, like, you're probably, I'm sure, like, in the locker room and, like, all these cool people you meet who are traveling around the world playing basketball, probably having, like, all kinds of cool relationships.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's why I started my camp, because I just tell people, basketball can really, bring you so many things you couldn't imagine. Around ball can take you across the world. It can introduce you to people you never thought you could meet, and you never know who you're interacting with. I mean, I've had teammates that are Muslim, Christian, Seventh-day Adventists, and you got to be able to relate and understand where they're coming from.
The power of the hang, people think it's all about this debate of marketplace of ideas, obviously very valuable. But I think what really convinces people to change their mind about something over the course of time is like experiential things. And I want to, you definitely can speak to this. Your organization is all about not debating ideas, but creating shared experiences.
For sure.
So tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, I mean, before I started really my nonprofit, I had a training company, still do, where I was doing camps, really in partnership with JCCs and my own basketball camps. And then like 8 months ago, just from my experience in Israel, I just felt, people live really in a bubble. Like I would get comments jokingly from my teammates, and I always say truths are in jokes. And, they would say like, are you really Jewish? Like, are you really? Or because in Israel, there's this thing that a lot of, I guess, people that are my skin, African-American would marry an Israeli to get Israeli citizenship. Israeli citizenship, or they would just get a passport from the Israeli government, yada yada yada. And I just felt a lot of people just lived in a bubble, not just African Americans or Jews, but just people in general. And also there was just this surge of rise in anti-Semitism and racism and people I was hearing about. So I just thought, why not use basketball to bridge the gap between communities?
Is this a post-October 7th thing?
No, this was pre.
It was pre,
so
right?
I had a camp on the 60th commemorations of the Day of Washington. And then I went to Israel, and then October 7th happened. And then I came back home. I was trying to figure out what I was going to do because our season was on pause. And then once I went back, I felt that, I wouldn't say nobody, but I felt like a lot of the focus, as it should have been, was on soldiers and wounded soldiers. And I felt many people weren't really focusing on kids. If they were, I didn't know about them. I'll put it that way.
In terms of causes to get
as far as causes,
it was
give
bandwidth.
them
There's only so much bandwidth.
As far as giving them some sort of inspiration or something to do, because a lot of the kids, at least I was in the South, a lot of those kids were displaced, so they lived in hotels. They lived in Tel Aviv. They none of them were home, and they didn't have any extracurricular activity, so they would just be in a hotel or go play freelance, whatever they wanted to do. So once our season was back and families started moving back into Ashkelon, the city I was playing in, I decided to start really like ramping things up. Like so I do every month I would do a free clinic. So like the T-shirt I got now, the kids would get T-shirts. I would get them pizza. I would bring like a special guest, and we would just have fun, like just skills and drills for 2 hours. And the first camp,
Israeli displaced kids primarily?
Israeli displaced kids primarily in the South. The first camp, I had 70 kids. And then every month I would do it. And then by month 4, I got approached to build a court. There was a court in Ashkelon that was really good for a socialization framework. Like one side of the street was like a poor neighborhood, and one side of the street was like a gentrified neighborhood that was being rebuilt. And the company that approached me, their founder was Jewish and really wanted to give something back through sport to the country. So they saw what I was doing, was really inspired by it. And we built a court. It was renamed after my foundation. And, that was another cool way that we can, give an outlet to the kids. It was really just about, giving them hope and inspiring them. So that happened. And in my last one, I partnered with Reebok, and we had a 3-on-3 street ball tournament. So
Jared's crushing it out
every
there.
month we had something cool for the kids to do.
Can I ask you the logistics of that? How did you get in touch with Reebok and
I mean,
make all that happen?
I just always use the phrase, closed mouths don't get fed. And I'm a very bold person. I just had reached out to the CEO of the company that owns Reebok. And surprisingly, he responded. He sent me down basically the chain, and
that's awesome.
Got to get him on that Robert Kraft email list.
Yeah.
He's all about supporting
the week
sports
later.
facilities in Israel. Are you like documenting all this for social media and stuff like that? Is that a big part of your hustle to like get that out?
So I'm supposed to have a document, like mini docuseries come out about the court. See where that takes, but
in terms of a public presence, to find out what people want to find out what's going on.
I mean, I have a PR agent in Israel that does a fantastic job for me. Shout out to my man Ash. So I mean, since February, we've been in every publication you can think of in Israel, from the TMZs to Ynet to Sports 5, Sports 1, every network. Yesterday I was on I-24 News. So I mean,
Jared Armstrong healing the world through basketball, one hoop at a time. Tell us now. You played yourself, but how does it play it? Winning a championship or winning the world?
So
how have the kids responded? What's the reaction been like?
For the court, they were super soaked. But other than that, I mean, I tell people most of the kids can't speak English because they were mostly first, second, and third graders. So it really showed me that basketball can really transform, I wouldn't say the world, but it can transform people to really get to know each other.
Transcend those divisions.
But for sure.
Yeah, wait, are the kids? So I know before October 7th, it was more to bridge some worlds through basketball. Now it seems more just like recreational for the kids to get their mind off whatever's going on.
It was the philosophy a little bit changed when I was in Israel. The philosophy was more so to be an escape route for the kids and a sanctuary of peace. When I'm in America, it's really to build between communities.
Oh, got it.
Like my camp I just had 3 weeks ago, we had over 90 kids. I mean, 20% of my campers were Jewish. 60% of them was people of color. 90% were boys, 10% was girls. And we got great feedback. And then I partnered with the ADL. They taught a course on antisemitism. I partnered with First Trust Bank, who taught financial literacy. And I partnered with a company called Mass Movements, whose founder and CEO used to work for the Sixers. So I really just gave them pretty much basketball, and I planted seeds for things for them to understand that, basketball ends someday. That's your goal, to be a career. Like, you got to know how to manage your money. You got to know how to be healthy. Most of my kids didn't even know how to make a smoothie. You got
to get Shaq as like a keynote. One of these things. He's like, he's about counting Moshe. I got this guy counting Moshe. Took care of my finances. I knew he'd be trusted. I could get him. His name's Moshe.
That is an awful Shaq.
No, son. It's not an awful Shaq. See, it's getting there. It's a little better.
See,
sorry, I was told. So when I first started, they said you got to manage your money. Now I got this guy Moshe, Jewish guy, little Jewish guy. Take care of my money. Could take care of your family. Come on, it's not bad.
It's a good face. There's like Charles Barkley in there somewhere.
Yeah,
There's
but
like
that's terrible. That's just terrible.
That's
the. But Shaq's You ever see Shaq get chiropractic adjusted on TikTok? It's pretty interesting.
No, like
his neck.
2 chiropractors on shoulders.
Maybe. But I wanted to ask about the bridge building aspect of what you were talking about, because pre-October 7th, I think when we had connected, it was like Arabs and Jews, Muslims and Jews in Israel playing basketball together.
No, so
was it
when we had spoke, I wasn't really doing anything in Israel yet until after October 7th. But as I go back, I am going to start working on the Arab-Israeli conflict and bringing people together, starting at a starting at a very early age. So
okay, it was primarily just various communities within Israel, but not.
Yeah, my focus was really just displaced kids, giving them an outlet and giving them a place to really just do an extracurriculum activity. I mean, they still learn. We trained them at a high level, but it was just important for them to be able to get out the house. They didn't have any options really.
Have you always been someone who's just like doing like you could have just gone to Israel and just enjoyed yourself?
For sure.
like are you always like going above and beyond and like finding different ways to expand yourself? And
yeah, I mean, I think for me it's always been.
Michael doesn't understand ambition. You have to try to.
It's very ambitious.
I mean, for me it was just trying to find a niche.
Yeah.
And I felt that was a niche. Most of my companies that I started have been niches. I mean, now training businesses. Everybody's a trainer, but as far as bridge building, I felt that was, especially being someone that can relate to both communities, like being African American and Jewish, just like 0.15% or something,
right?
So I thought I can easily relate to the African American community, and same with the Jewish community. So like my camp in Philly, I'm able to relate to all kids from all different walks of life.
Right.
I'm curious because we talked, especially in the last iteration of our podcast, Buckle Up, we talked a lot about like creative careers and how to like stay inspired and like build systems to keep yourself creative and successful. And like this last year, I got really into the NBA, and I've been thinking a lot about basketball players and creative people and some of the connections between them. And like I find that like a career in art and a career in basketball aren't so different because like I mean,
basketball
I think,
is art.
Yeah, like Melo says, like there's a lot of guys in the league who shouldn't be, and a lot of guys who aren't in the league that should be. Like in the same way with like writing or music or anything. Like it's not necessarily a factor of your function of your talent.
For sure.
That leads to success. So like, no. So what I like about you is you're like I may become a super successful basketball player, but like I need other areas of my life that can keep me afloat.
Yeah, I mean, I think if people just rely on basketball, then it's like, what did you do with your life? If you're going to be 50 and still talk about how much you're a great basketball player, then you're doing it for the wrong reasons. I think it's the people that really try to make a difference. I just really try to follow the LeBron model. I think what LeBron did with it, not only his career but what he's done off the court, has been very inspirational. From building a court, from having a school, just all the things that he's done. Off the court has been very inspiring to me. Same with another guy I like to watch, Chris Brickley. He's another person that he's like one of 12 celebrities that has built a court in his hometown. That's like one of my next, ambitions to do is, just really give kids outlets, and inspire the next generation.
I mean, LeBron did that though as like an iconic NBA player. Like you're doing it just as you're getting started, which I think is really
yeah.
Cool.
I mean, I always say I'm just getting started, and if I'm doing this now, imagine what I'll do in 5 years. So.
And what about Bronny? What's your take?
Honestly, I haven't watched him enough.
Give us a take.
I haven't.
Hate him.
I haven't.
Hate him. Nepo baby. No, I don't know. It's fascinating to watch. For me, I'm not like a sports guy, and I don't understand like the real technical aspects of it. But watching them talk about analyzing someone's game is really fascinating.
Well,
Did you see Red? Who's the guy who has the podcast?
JJ Redick.
JJ
Redick.
Redick, yeah,
with LeBron.
Yeah, and they analyze like
for
play,
sure.
and I was like, I can't believe it gets thought of at this deep a level.
Oh,
do you understand that? Because I watch a lot of basketball, and it's way above me.
Like, let's say we're doing a thing.
Yeah, for sure. I mean,
strategic language.
I'm a professional basketball player. I never dunked the ball, so majority of my career has to be used from head above. So understanding the game, I think, just can take your whole game to another level. Just being smarter than the person next to you or the person defending you, because your athleticism wears out eventually.
That clip I'm talking about, I'm like, this is what's going on. I thought they're just playing basketball. I'm like, this is. I mean, it reveals my ignorance to the
no, it's not
geekiness.
It's not just you. I've spoken to people who play basketball really seriously, not professionally, but like they're really good players and they play seriously, and even they can't understand that podcast.
Sure.
So like,
right.
For sure.
What sets someone apart as far as like, that everyone who's arriving to try to get into the NBA and play pro is the best in their community, right? They were the best ones on their high school team. They were the best ones. And then you come up against it's like, I remember I went to music school, right? So everyone there when you get to music school was the one in their hometown that was like, you should go to music school. But then you get to like that level and then you start to sift out the uncommon amongst uncommon people thing. So what do you see in the qualities of like, you're saying it's a head up thing? Like, what do you notice in terms of someone who was just good for his community versus playing with the big boys? And
well, I mean, there's levels to the game, and there's micronutrients at each level. So, I mean, it could be broken down really to a T. You know, who can shoot, who cannot shoot. You know, like am I going to go under? I mean, some things are just common sense. Am I going to go under a ball screen of a guy who can shoot? You know, if you're a point guard, if the guy goes under, normally it's an automatic rescreen. After the rescreen, is he playing a drop coverage or is he playing a hedge? If he's playing a hedge, then I pick it to the big, and now it's 3-on-2. So it's just a lot of.
Followed all of that.
Are you like reading books about that? Or are you sitting down with
No,
your coaches?
I think I just always had a high IQ for the game and understand. And like I said, I never been super athletic. I never been a guy above the rim. Yeah. So I always knew like my IQ and my skill and my shooting had to be a super par for
to have a more 360 bird's eye view of what's going on the court.
JJ Redick talks a lot about it, and like Melo also, because I watch like a lot of NBA podcasts now. They talk about it's like having a career in professional basketball is mostly being on the right team at the right time and figuring out how you can contribute.
For sure.
And if you can get that, you may have a career. But you could be super talented on the wrong team at the wrong time, and it just doesn't.
Sure. You know, basketball is a business.
Yeah.
It's big, you know, on who's coaching you. You may be super talented, be on the right team, but to have a coach that doesn't like you and doesn't want to play you. I mean,
there's a politics element to it.
Yeah, there's a huge politics.
I mean, I can never close on the layup. I have power, but no finesse. So I'm like, and I just flip. I just freak out.
He gets to the rim, but then
I gets to the rim, and then boom, got no finesse. So I just chuck it. And sometimes it works, and most of the time it doesn't. So I play music for a living and do comedy. Wow. It's very cool to see the basketball IQ is what you're talking about, which is something you don't think about.
And I wanted to ask you about the training also, because like I think artists and professional athletes have a lot to do with that. Like you were just telling us, we asked you where you're going after this. You're like, I'm going to train. Yeah. Like just talk to us about like what's the discipline there? What are you training for exactly? Like how does your schedule revolve around that?
Fitness to basketball.
Yeah, I mean my schedule starts every day at 5 a.m. I'm on the field with my guy. His name is Kenny Reds. He's an NFL trainer. I work with him every morning. Typically after that, I go straight to the weight room. This season we kind of switched things up. We're doing a lot of cardio and a lot of isometrics. I personally just can gain weight like looking at it. So, you know, my thing this year was just I wanted to get more shredded, and that just means ramping up the cardio. And if we are lifting weights, it's like super light. And after that, you know, I give recovery. I get on the court in the afternoon, and then I either have clients or I may go back and shoot or go back literally to the weight room.
So this is this is a trainer that you pay out of your own pocket to work with you.
Yeah. So this is like the investment in myself. You know,
and I may start Ozempic. So we're in similar positions here. It's going to be hard. It's going to be a long road.
You're beautiful, I mean.
Manjaro, I wouldn't do Ozempic.
Yeah. So
Manjaro.
Are a lot of guys playing Israeli basketball doing that?
I wouldn't say they're training 3, 4 times a day, but I want to really have a big season. I want this to be the year that things take off for me. I've always been a guy that worked hard. Like that was one thing about me since little. You know, in 5th grade, 6th grade, my mom would take me after practice to go put up 500 mix every day, and that's kind of just been my regimen. And I think that same thing, like I said with my camps, that correlates to life. You know, if you work hard on the court, most importantly, that's going to correlate. If you're lazy on the court and you're just talented, like KD said, hard works beats talent when talent works hard, and I think that just falls into every element.
Hard work beats talent
when talent doesn't work hard.
Ooh, I like that.
Yeah,
hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard. I totally agree.
It's something like that.
Talent might be necessary, but not sufficient. I've seen hard work beat out talent every day. The harder workers.
I mean, I think Michael Rubin said that best. Like he's not athletic, or he didn't really play sports, but he said, I just was obsessed with what I did. That's why he's super successful. And I think the obsessive people that are obsessed with their craft, obsessed with being challenged, are the ones that be the change makers and the best.
I heard Mike McDaniel, he's the Dolphins head coach. That's a football team. He did this amazing interview with Dan Lebatard. You know him?
No, I don't.
But he said something really interesting where he's like a young, cool guy. He doesn't look like an NFL coach. He doesn't talk like an NFL coach. He's really interesting. And he was just saying he just has something in his head that he can turn on. And he's just like, I am going to beat this person.
For sure.
And he does. And he believes everyone has that, but he's just like, I just know how to tap into that.
For sure.
And that is why I'm successful.
Yeah. I mean, I think I wouldn't say I have the same exact qualities, but, you know, I just get obsessed with things. I just create it up daily. have it. I'm not saying I'm the best basketball player in the world, but I think for what I've accomplished for my height and my size has been extraordinary. And it just, like I said, just trying to keep building brick by brick, day by day, and just keep getting better.
Oh. So you're tall to me. I'm a short guy. I mean, but that's always been a thing underestimating. People were saying to you, like that external pressure, like, hey man, you're not tall enough.
Yeah.
That's kind of a thing. It doesn't even occur to me being a short Jew like
no, I thought when you walked in, I was a little surprised.
For sure.
Yeah. Don't underestimate the short kings.
And that's coming from me. Yeah.
Don't underestimate the short kings. You watch The Professor on TikTok? You a fan of The Professor?
I personally don't even use TikTok. I just.
But you know who he is, The Professor?
Yeah, for sure.
What do you think of that? It's so cool.
Don't know enough about him.
Who's The Professor?
The Professor is this guy. He posts basketball videos, street basketball, and he just. I don't know if it's applicable to the game, like we're talking about with basketball IQ, but he demolishes one-on-one challengers with insane acrobatic crossovers and ankle. If you have to watch it, he was in Adam Sandler's movie. Adam Sandler cast him in that movie about basketball.
Yep.
And he's in the streets, and people are trying to take him on. And he does these moves you'll never see in a game. And I don't know how applicable it is.
No, to that point, there was a documentary on And One.
Yeah,
for sure.
And
they were talking to NBA players about them, and they ended the documentary saying how come you think any of these guys could play in the NBA? And across the board, all the NBA players laughed. And
of the street ballers.
Yeah, and they're like being a professional basketball player means you play basketball on days you don't want to play basketball.
Oh, for sure.
And these guys, they don't do that.
It's so interesting to see, and I've seen also like online social media stuff where it's like the last guy on the bench plays the best guy in the street and destroys him. Yeah. So it's just interesting to see like the person you never see playing in the NBA is better than everybody.
Because it's that work ethic of training all day is different. It's just a different. It's the same thing with I think a career in like the arts. Like you have to get up every day and try to do it.
Sure.
I'd say the difference with arts is like it's not the competition element of art is really you're competing against yourself, but competition in sports is part of the craft.
For sure.
It's the nature of it is competition, where it's like, besides from battle of the bands that you do in high school or college or whatever, like but the competing against yourself element is what's tried.
The discipline of it.
Yeah, the discipline of perfecting a craft is completely translated. You said basketball is an art, and even thinking about the game creatively of how to do things. There's interesting people like to segment off sports and arts, and I kind of do that too sometimes. But the way you're talking about it kind of makes me think about it. As like there's more connective tissue there.
It's like a performance career. You're like getting up and performing every day.
Yeah, for sure.
Totally. Jared, good schmooze, man.
Anything else you want to like promote or tell us about? Like any camps coming up?
Where can people find you?
People can find me on social media, just my name.
Jared Armstrong.
Yeah, and we're building a brand. I think Jab Camp is starting to get bigger. We've been lucky to have great partners with, Lids, with 5 Star Basketball, with many other companies, Reebok. Just trying to take things to the next level. That's where I'm at pretty much in my career on and off the court, is just challenging myself every day, brick by brick, just to be better. When I go to bed at night, and I'm sure you guys can do it. That's what I tell my clients. When you look yourself in the mirror and you can ask, did you get better today? There's only one answer, yes or no. And there's no in between. There's no maybe. And that's kind of where I'm at. It's just a thin line of, every day I'm trying to get better. That marginal gain is where I'm trying to be. And, it's not easy. I'm not going to lie. Some days I wake up, look at the clock, and I want to hit that snooze button. But, it's bigger than you. It's bigger than me. And, we're all in this, world together to be better. So
we did this all wrong. We should have just had Jared train us.
The whole episode?
Yeah.
I'm going to put inspirational music to that, and we can enter Guru TikTok and go viral. That was really, I agree with you. I mean, it's you against you every day. And it's not about looking at macro goals, but like every day if you get a little bit better, you're
I think that ending was good.
And you're building bridges all over. I wanted to, maybe for another time, another episode to dig more into that too. But we did in the beginning. I think it's just fascinating.
Yeah, I mean, I could dig into it right now if you want.
Well, I had one more question. Just I don't want to. I mean, we went into the basketball stuff, which is fascinating, but just in terms of just domestically, like what I've seen, like especially like post like the BLM stuff and post all the stuff that I've noticed. Kanye West remarks came up recently in my world because I had in my conversation with Candace, we debated it, and what was so striking to me about that tweet, the infamous Kanye tweet, I'm going DEFCON 3 on Jewish people, was how resonant it seemed to be with fans of Kanye. And whether his remarks came from a place from him of like mental illness and all that stuff, it was so disturbing. And I'm just curious, like, when you see a tweet like that and you see a response to it, like, and he also said, like, I can't be anti-Semitic because I'm also a Jew, that whole, like, sort of co-opting of Jewish identity in the fake way, the sort of Black Hebrew Israelite interpretation where it's like, they're not the real Jews, we're the real Jews. How do you experience that and interpret that in terms of feeling attacked or feeling affronted or offended?
Honestly, it doesn't hit for me.
Yeah.
You know, I just look at it and obviously it gives a negative impact, number one, because Kanye is Kanye. Yeah. Number two, you know, obviously I feel the Jewish community will be impacted, but it honestly makes my job way harder.
How so?
Number one, Kanye's African American, so and that whole, like you said, Jewish thing with Black Hebrew Israelites. Yeah. You know, I've been asked that question several times.
Oh, yeah. Right.
So, you know, I think it just from a personal level, it makes my job harder to build bridges, you know, between the Black community and the Jewish community, because some people may look at that tweet and be like, I'm with Kanye. And
so I wanted to ask about that because, like it or not, when we criticize it, when white Jews, for lack of a better term, criticize it, it's interpreted one way.
For sure.
But you're in a unique position that you can dispel a myth and a false narrative about Jews in ways we just can't.
For sure.
I hate that that's the case, that people judge people based on optics, but do you feel you have a unique ability?
Yeah.
Even though you said it's challenging, you have a unique perspective that I can take these people head on and say, like, I can take the Kanye sympathizers head on and say, like, you have it wrong about what Jews are.
I think I do sit in a very unique position. It's not an easy one. I mean, I'm just like I tell everybody, I'm just a regular guy, but I think I can relate to so many people from different walks of life, whether they're Black, whether they're Muslim, whether they're Christian. I mean, one of my closest friends is Muslim. I mean, just to be straight up with you. And, you know, for me, I can talk to in a language that they can understand that maybe a Jewish kid from Yonkers, New York, or upstate New York cannot, you know, just being real with you. So I think I'm able to be more relatable, if I can use a correct term, than most other people can't. And same with people in the Jewish community. Like, I can relate to things they've been through that I've been through.
Right.
You know, so I think being in this unique position is why I think Jab is, you know, taken off, because I can bridge the gap and build those bridges that are needed to be built. You know, I mean, I think the African American and Jewish community, you know, have been needing repairs for years now. You know, and I think, you know, it's time, obviously, with October 7th happened there. I've seen many African Americans that have sided, you know, with Hamas or whatever.
Right. But what's the organization? It's Blacks for Palestine? What's the Rashida Tlaib?
Yeah, I'm not sure what
do they call it? Even the BLM, that Chicago thing with the paraglider.
I saw that. Yeah.
It's crazy. And it's just like, whether it's out of curiosity, suspicion, or whatever it is, like, you have this.
Yeah,
and I understood this to be this conduit to dispel something in a powerful way that.
Yeah, for sure. And when I speak to people in the African American community, I just try to be as real as I can. I'd say, you know, and I always ask questions that just are straight cut. Does innocent people deserve to die? Yes or no? Right. And, you know, they'll go on to try to put history, like, no, this is the question. Does innocent people deserve to die? Does babies deserve to die? You know, and they'll say, oh, how do you know that's factual? Like, and for me, it's interesting because I was there. I lived, 20, maybe less than 20 kilometers from Gaza. Right. So that day when it happened, I felt the bombings, you know, I felt all that. And people would always ask me, like, how are you standing up for another country? And I'm like, well, number one, I have Israeli citizenship. But number two, like, right is right and wrong is wrong. You know, and why aren't you standing up? It has nothing to do with your political view. I think that's where a lot of people got mixed up or didn't want to involve themselves. I think it was just like, listen, bro, like, what happened to George Floyd, there was a lot of people in all communities that stood up. It was wrong what happened. Regardless of your political view, that was wrong. Same thing what happened here on October 7th. 1,200 people did not deserve to die. I don't care what you say. Like, it is what it is.
This is humanity versus cruelty, not politics.
Regardless of you know what you agree with, what your political view is, that's just what I felt, and I always just try to break it down in that way. Like, we're talking about people here.
And what's that initial reaction when you come across someone here who's an African American in the United States who's sympathetic to those causes or feeling compelled by that narrative, and they come across your viewpoint when you engage. What is it? I mean, what's
well,
what's the
I put it even more harsh. I'd be like, well, did I deserve to die? Because I could have died. Then what? Like, would you say I deserve to die? And a lot of them, feel more sympathetic, I would say, because I'm putting it in their shoes. Like, yo, you my homie, you my bro. Mm-hmm. You see me every summer. Did I deserve to die? Because I was there. I could have just been a loose end.
This is like in Philly if you're back visiting. Coming across people.
Yeah. So, a lot of people will be like, yo, it's crazy. And I always tell people, like, listen, don't watch mainstream media. Like, it's amplified. Like, I would get phone calls and, people would tell me like, yo, you all right? You safe?
Yeah.
I'm like, bro, nothing happened. Like, I'm on the beach with my feet up.
Right. Well, of course, there's always the theater of what's going on and what's going on day to day, and people get a sense. I would say, though, post October 7th, that started the portrayal of Israel and the reality of Israel were a little closer than I was comfortable with, because like rockets were falling on a daily basis. So on the one hand, we're trying to show people how grave the situation is, but you also don't want to exaggerate like what daily life is. So it became a bit more complicated because it is a war. It is going on.
Yeah, for sure.
But so do you find that you make inroads of an understanding?
Oh, for sure. For sure.
Because that's powerful. You're like, could I be in the...
for sure.
They're trying to kill me.
Yeah, for sure. I just kind of put it in that context of, if you were there and you were in my shoes and you were running down the street and they saw you, they wouldn't ask you what religion you believe in. Mm-hmm. They're going to kill you. Like, it's just point blank range. Mm-hmm. And I think many people, when I put it in a context that they can understand, then they become more sympathetic. Right. And I try to explain, like, they didn't just kill Jews. Like, they killed people from other religions and other ethnicities. So... I just try to keep it as real as I can as possible. Whether they accept it or not, I've got more positive feedback than negative. But and I've talked to women that were Palestinian. Some of them you can't steer, but others, I just try to, if they do stay negative, I just say, well, listen, I wish you the best. Mm-hmm. No hate in my blood towards you, but I hope you become better. That's it. Right. Keep it that way.
All right. Well, 9/11. What's your take? Okay.
Well, my dad was in 9/11, so yeah.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Oh, it's all good. He didn't die.
Oh.
He survived. Yeah.
Oh.
Okay. Well, let's let's just wrap up that little point there because that was big. Okay. He was what was his involvement?
He was in the tower.
So my dad was in the Pentagon when when it got hit. He was on the other side of the building. He was a Navy corpsman, so he actually had to clean up a lot of the bodies. So he's been traumatized for years after that. But crazy, we were talking before this. I got pulled over and I didn't have my insurance. But he drove me and my sister the next day back to the Pentagon, and it was still in flames.
Yeah. And
he was showing us, what happened and everything. But I remember that day kind of like yesterday because we didn't know.
I didn't expect my off-color comment there to go here to a real place, but of course, you always keep it real, Jared, going to these places. It's crazy. That's wild. That's a wild little factoid.
Being here, you don't hear much about the Pentagon on 9/11.
No,
it's all the
Twin Towers.
Twin Towers,
Wow,
terrible.
That's powerful. So that's etched in your memory forever.
Yeah. I mean, I got a little crazy background, so it's all good.
Well, we got to hear some of it today, and I'm glad we did. Jared,
all good.
Thanks for joining us here at Ami's
so
House.
Much.
Keep doing what you're doing, man.
Appreciate it,
really, really cool.
And thank you. Really nice meeting you.
Maybe you can help me with my jump shot outside after this episode, because it's horrific.